What's going on, guys? No Guides here. Welcome back to another video. One question I get heavily asked is, how do I know which formation I should use for my playstyle? Now I want to quickly say there's many ways you can do it. My job is to create a formation for you to use, and your job is basically to choose which one you want to use. Now normally if you look at, for example, FIFA 20 formations, typically speaking, I've made formations like, for example, the 5-3-2, the 5-2-1-2, and the 3-5-2 were always meta. In fact, if you type in Neil Guides FIFA 19 5-2-1-2 and 5-3-2, you can see those videos up there why it was so effective back in the day. So what makes a formation meta? Well, I'll be honest, it's kind of a different thing. Most of the time, without sounding a bit I suppose not sounding presumptuous, but most of the time when I make a formation, it'll work for you. Why is that? Well, you see, the way my formations are designed is they're designed in a way that if someone like yourself replicates or copies that formation, it will help you play better. If you look at, for example, most pro player custom tactics, this is what you will see. And don't be shocked. You would see this, this, and this. Now, this is the thing. You might be thinking, well, they must be lying to me. They got some secret tactics. Well, the truth is they don't. When I'm actually playing proper series, let's say, for example, I am playing, let's say I was competing, or I was playing for money, or let's say I was with my friends, we had a tournament. I'll be using a 4-2-3-1, and this is the exact same tactics I would use. Now, why? Why is it that players like myself and other pro players and other top tier players, other content creators have very, very simple tactics? Because we know what we're doing. When we have the ball with our cam or with our center mid, we know. So when I have the ball with my CDM, I know I can trigger Eto forward and Neymar going forward. So I don't have to use getting behind. I don't have to use, for example, comeback and offense, because I can drag a player back manually. I'm comfortable defending with 2 CDMs and having everyone else on stay forward. So these are the things you have to bear in mind. So when you're choosing a formation, my best advice is you have 2 options. Number 1, go to my new channel and go to, for example, if you have 21 tactics and formations, the main tactics I have over here. So these are the main ones that I use. I normally rotate around a 4-4-2, the 4-2-3-1, 4-1-2-1-2, 3-5-2, and if you want to add the 5-3-2 into the mix, you can do that. If you go on my main channel, you'll see other formations. I don't really put the main. I don't put, like, for example, like the 4-3-2-1. It's a really good formation, but I don't use it. The reason why is because I don't need to use it. When I play up against a 3-5-2, I'm very comfortable with myself defending and knowing how to counter the 3-5-2 formation, but you might not be able to counter that, and that is why these formations are made. Believe me, it's easier for me to not make these formation videos, because obviously it takes it. People just think I decide to go on YouTube one day and be like, oh, let me make a video on the 4-4-4-1-1 because it gives me a couple of views, and they think I just go on here and just sit here and be like, okay, hey guys, let me just think of something on top of my head. It doesn't work like that. When I make a formation, it's tested out in game. I try to give it to a few friends that try it out, and then it gets released. For example, long ball is one of the biggest things that I've been advocating, and before no pro player was using it. Now pro players are using it. People have a bit more of a general consensus towards it, because when I first said it, it's kind of like fullback, centre back, or like the 5-3-2 when I first said it. When I first said it, everyone was batting eyelids like, what on earth is Neil guys talking about? Using a guy off chemistry. But then once people understand the reasonings and the benefits, then they change. And it's the same with long ball. The reason why long ball, if you gave the long ball tactic, let's say someone had 2 formations, a balanced formation and a long ball formation. Naturally speaking, if you gave a gold 3 to a gold 1 player a formation with long ball, they will naturally play better. Why? It's because when you have long ball, it just means players getting behind. Now, a lot of players, I would say even elite caliber players, they don't even trigger players that much. I know a lot of elite players that barely trigger runs going forward. Some elite players don't even trigger runs at all. It's not needed to get to elite, because elite's not that hard if you think about it in terms of getting the rank itself. But if you're an actual elite player, you should be using L1 triggers, but a lot of people don't use it. So that's why long ball basically supplements your game style. That's why if you use, even myself, I personally know how to trigger players to make runs going forward. When I'm playing very casually, when I'm streaming, I'm not really paying too much attention to the game. But by using long ball, players are making runs on their own, so I don't have to trigger them manually. Does that make sense? So that's the reason why certain things. And also, when I make a formation, it's kind of changed depending on the system. For example, you might see these videos, for example, every single week, and you might be thinking, why do you do them? In all honesty, I never did them before. I think it's not a bad idea for content. on my weekly tactic setup. Now, the reason why this is because I chop and change my tactic setup. In my opinion, so every single week I upload this, because some of you guys don't have time to watch, for example, a video understanding why is the 5-2-1-2 really good formation. I know most of you guys, some of you guys are working. You haven't got time to go into a video and understand my explanations. You just want to go straight and understand and just basically copy the tactics directly. That's why those formations are released. The second thing is, a lot of the time, tactics change. Now, it's not that the game changes, it's that the way your opponent changes. So let's say, for example, the 5-3-2. It was always a meta formation before it even came out. Before Dull and Mike used it, it was always meta. I used it in my setup every single year. I used my 15k team. But once the entire community use it, then the way the community defends changes. And that's why you have to have systems. That's why, for example, I have two 3-5-2s. I've got a defensive 3-5-2. And I got attacking 3-5-2, because sometimes the attacking 3-5-2 is good, but if my opponent's gone to a defensive phase, I need a player to come back on defense. For example, I need the 4-4-2 because if my opponent is now holding the ball, don't forget, team press has now been nerfed. No one wants to keep flicking the team press button every single 5 seconds. It takes too long, and it's very, very, in the game, it's strenuous to keep going down, left in the D-pad. But by putting constant pressure on, you completely fix that. But that's why you might have seen, for example, if we go back, it's like one of these old videos on the 4-4-2, but let's say before they nerfed it, you might see that there is no constant pressure, there was pressure on heavy touch. It's because the game changes. So it's not only that the formation changes for myself, I react it to the game. A good example is the 4-3-3. Now, the 4-2-3-1 is still a top tier formation, but most people are struggling against because what people are doing is that, let's say, for example, let's say 2 guys watch my video. Let's say one of my guys copies a 4-4-2. If he uses this, he ends up becoming a pressing god. Now, on the other end, the other person who's unfortunately got the ball and let's say is winning 1-0 and has to defend against the press, how do they defend against it? And that's where the 4-3-3 third variation comes up. So they use the 4-3-3 third variation, and then, as I mentioned, they'll get a better understanding how pressing works and they're able to counter it. So the idea is, when I release these videos every single week, when I explain them, listen to my explanations, because I explain to you what you can chop and change and what you can add. The staples stay somewhat the same, but even myself, for example, I could lie and say, for example, I changed to the 4-4-2, my main formation, 5-2-1-2, 5-3-2, but I don't. I keep it very real with you, because that's just who I am. I've always used the 3-5-2 since the game came out, and I have not changed because I really think it's a superior formation. But I know if you watch this video, you might be saying, okay, hang on, Neil, I don't like the 3-5-2. I'm not that good at defending. I need to use the 4-2-3-1. And that is why I say, okay, if you're going to be using that, have a defensive setup. For example, have the 2 formations. So if you are going to play a 4-2-3-1, leave one 4-2-3-1 on this slot and leave the more attacking one on that slot. So the idea is you can chop and change. In my opinion, I would say keep everything the same. Normally, I would say the 3 main formations. I'll make a video on what makes a meta formation or something like that, or the actual, how it reacts. But generally speaking, some variation of a 3-5-2 and a 5-2-1-2 or the 5-3-2 are probably the most meta formations at this point. They've always been meta, by the way, not just this year. They've been meta last year and the year before that. In fact, FIFA 19 was when the 5-2-1-2 and the 5-3-2 was meta. Trust me, if a pro player used that in a tournament, they would have probably got very, very far, because those left back and right backs were completely unmarked. Obviously, I spoke to people about it, but obviously at that time, no one really knew about it that much. But they've always been meta, and they always will be, unless EA patch it. If EA patch it, I will let you know. But up until then, they're the most meta formations. Things like the 4-2-3-1 staple formation like these will always be in the game. For example, I can tell you this. You played the 4-2-3-1 this year. It's been slightly nerfed compared to last year. The CDM sit a bit higher. But generally speaking, the formation will always be meta. Same with the 4-4-2. So they're always going to be the best variations. The key thing is how they change. So what I would say is try the formations out. As I mentioned, go to my main channel. And on my channel, I have a list of formations. Try them all out. See which one you like and then stick with them. Then you can add them into your equation. And if you want to move, like let's say, for example, so you guys know I advocate the 3-5-2. If you really want to change to use the 3-5-2, then go ahead and just use it. Watch, for example, my videos. Don't forget, when I upload a formation video, I also explain how to play that formation. For example, how to use the 4-3-2-1, how to use the 4-4-2. So watch those videos, that way you get a better understanding of how to use it. Like, for example, how to attack in a 5-3-2. But a lot of players don't do that. They just copy the tactics and they think everything's fine and dandy. If you really want to take your performance to the next level, watch, for example, In the Mind of an Elite Player. I agree that eye tracker is frustrating to watch and it gets irritating, but it's very important to understand the thought process, to understand, for example, what do I do when I get the ball in this situation? What do I do when I'm 1-0 down? How do I react? How do I change the game? And let's say, for example, I'm in the game. Let's say I have the ball, for example, in this phase. You should pause the game and be like, okay, let's say I have the ball over here. What would I do, generally speaking? So let's assume, okay, I know it's offside, but let's just say, for example, like here, you pause it, for example, and you'll think, what would I do? And then you watch what I do. And you can see I make a pass to Eto and I do an L1 trigger. So that way you get an understanding of how the formation works, because I explain the formation. I give you the tactics that will work for you regardless of what player you are. And the key thing is implementing it. That's the best advice I can give you in regards to finding a formation. That's the best way I would go about it. As I said, just trust me. I know most of you guys have reservations about my opinions on the game, but all I can say is I've been playing this game for 20 years. I have a straight no BS approach, as many of you guys know. But when I say something, just trust me. It might be reservations, and of course, you should always research around you. But when I say something, just trust it first and then try it. Because people, too many times, they see something like fullbacks and centre back, they dismiss it. 3 years ago, they all laughed at me. They're not laughing now when they're all using fullbacks and centre back. So that's what I'd say as well. But as I said, also other content creators are out there as well. There's not just me. If you type in FIFA tutorials on YouTube, there's other players out there. So if you want, just type in FIFA tutorials, FIFA guides, and you'll see other people out there. So, don't be afraid to, for example, see other tutorials, because at the end of the day, all of our jobs together collectively, it's our jobs that are here to help you improve at the game. And we just basically have different channels, kind of like when you watch TV. You have different channels. Some channels you like watching a certain TV show about certain things. Maybe you like me for my tactics. Maybe you like someone else for their skills tutorial. That's the way it is. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. Take it easy and I'll catch you next time.